All right. Well, let me introduce tonight's speaker. It's Michael Chinnici. Is that the Italian pronunciation?
Chinnici.
Chinnici, okay. He is the founder and CEO of Photo Workshop Adventures based in New York. But Michael has traveled the world taking a variety of genres of photography, people, street, architecture, landscapes, motorsports, aerial, fashion. I'm trying to think if there's anything you haven't done yet. Sounds like you've covered it pretty much all. He does have a book. He was talking about that a little bit earlier on Vanishing Cuba. It's a collection of over 220 photographs from his many trips to Cuba. And I guess you're also working on a new book on Vanishing India, trips from India. So his topic tonight is evoking emotion, and basically trying to get images that, portray emotion and, whatever. Okay, so with that, let me turn it over to Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Share screen is disabled.
Oh, I got to share you. That's right. Hang on a second. Pardon me. I'm going to make you a co-host, and that will allow you to share your screen. I always forget to do that too, Chuck.
All right, let's see here. Keynote, there we go. You just okay, you can see that.
Yep.
Okay, you guys can see that all? Good?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Hey, well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Look forward to making this presentation. It's called Evoking Emotion, and it is something that I talk about on all of our photo tours to friends and to colleagues as well. It's one of the things that, we really try to achieve in everything we do when it comes to photography. To me, a photograph isn't a photograph unless it does evoke some kind of. That said, let's face it, it's pretty hard to create images that evoke emotion. They don't come so easily. That's like anything else. It's like you go and you shoot 1,000 images. Typically, 100 of them will come out in your first edit. And after 100, maybe 25 or 30 or 40, depending on how good you are or what it is you've shot, whether it's 1,000 very unique images or 1,000 images across a series of landscape exposures or model shoot or whatever it is you're shooting. So, one of the things I talk about is that truly great photographs evoke emotion. And, it's you want to try to get images that make people smile, cry, laugh, just say wow. Or, I've shown pictures to people who just like they gasp sometimes. That's their emotion. Everybody's different. So yeah, that's what you're looking for. And, when you think about images that we take, many of the images that are taken, and this happens with smartphones as well, they're just documented photographs. They're just snapshots. I kind of refer to them as snapshots. What I say is often when people start with or have an interest in photography, they're pretty much taking snapshots. And then after they kind of go from snapshots into taking technically correct images, and they master their photography more and more this way. And then they go into shooting postcards. And postcards, again, are maybe perfect pictures in certain respects, but often a postcard lacks real emotion. If it's a beautiful, beautiful image, people say, oh, I love that. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful sunset. But you try to go beyond that as a photographer. You try to find some things that really, really pull out emotion, and that's where it becomes harder and harder to do. So let's talk about emotional triggers. And I don't want to turn this into an analytical session, which I'm not. This is the only slide you'll see like this. But when you look at emotion from an analytical standpoint, there is this chart that was created a long time ago. There's different variations of it that really gets into the different things like love and awe and remorse. And you see different things like, fear or admiration or ecstasy or anger, sadness, surprise, amazement. All of those things are things that you should look for when you're trying to capture an image. So, this is just a good example of understanding all the different emotional things that exist out there. So an emotional trigger is anything that includes memories, experiences, events, and that sparks, that's a really important word, that sparks an intense emotional reaction regardless of your current mood. Okay, now, so when I say evoke an emotion means that your photograph should say something. If your photograph doesn't say anything, it's not really evoking emotion. It needs to evoke a feeling, say. It might be happy, sad, funny, moving, or capture a mood. Evoking emotion is fine, but capturing a mood is also important, and that could be happiness, sorrow, or beauty. So, you go out on a foggy day and you capture something that creates this really, really surreal mood. You're going to get people to look at that and go, "Oh, I really love that. It really makes me feel calm. It really just, I'm so attracted to that." And, it really comes down to creating magic. That's really it. You're creating a photograph. Yes, you're snapping the image, you're clicking it, whatever you want to describe it. You are freezing a moment in time. That's what a photograph is. But you're also creating a photograph, because had you not snapped it or taken it, you wouldn't be creating it. Well, let's talk about creating magic. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is color. Color, and I'm a big fan of black and white photography, so don't misunderstand me. And you'll see black and white photography in here too. But color is something that does evoke emotion. So different things, different colors. And some people like the blue. So say they see something in blue and they're happy, or they like red, or they like orange. So it's going to take you through, by the way, how does this look on your screen? Is it a good image?
Yes. Yeah, it's good.
Good, great. Okay. So this is taken in Sicily. These are not avocados. I can't remember what they're called exactly. But they come in these, I think they're prickly pears or something like that. And anyway, they come in these different colors. And, I just looked down and I saw it and I said, oh, this is just really pretty. And when most people see this image, they're just like, ah, wow. They're just kind of stunned by it, by the colors. Other than that, there's not a whole lot more to the picture. This is a picture I shot in Cuba. There's a car on the street. You would think that I planted that car there. First of all, you don't see a lot of station wagons like that in Cuba. And but when I saw the car sitting there next to these two buildings that don't even line up, if you look at them, it's kind of crazy. And they're painted different, and the car is almost split down the center. I looked at it and I was like, wow. There's not a car in front of it. There's not a car in back of it. I had to get down low and take the picture. But what really jumps out on this picture, or that might evoke emotion in some people, if you're a car person, just a car that's going to evoke emotion. But it's the color. Here I am in Morocco, and there are different fabrics hanging. And get these colorful fabrics, taking a picture of the fabric, again, would have been a snapshot. Instead, what I chose to do, this was shot with like my, I think it was my X100F, or the previous model, the fixed lens. And I just slowed the shutter speed down and jerked the camera as I took the image. To get that look and to get that saturation of color, used ND built in a two-stop built-in ND filter as well, which helps slow it down as well. So let's see. Okay. This was shot in Sri Lanka. I was crossing a bridge. And oh no, I'm sorry. This was actually in Kerala, India, in south of India. And I was crossing a bridge, and these boats were parked underneath the bridge, just with the sticking out. And I looked down and just thought this was a really nice image, the way it's framed. But again, it's the color that jumps out. And yeah, you know, the water looks really dark and murky. It's because it was in shadow. And I think I went in and I made it even a little darker just to make the boat pop more.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the water, if it was really that dark.
Yeah, it was dark because it was in shadow. But
Can I ask about the colors? Are you enhancing those with Photoshop?
I don't use any. Okay, so I don't use any Photoshop. I use Lightroom. I don't use Flash. Everything's natural light. I very rarely, 2-3 photos out of 1,000, I might go to Photoshop. And never to, usually it's blemishes on a model's face or something. And then the other thing is everything's natural light. If anything, there might be some fill LED. Once in a while, I use the strobe. You might see a couple of model shots that have some strobe on them, but otherwise that's it. And do I enhance? Yes, it depends. I'm shooting with Fuji's, and the Fuji's, some of these are Nikon. Before I switched over, I shot with Nikon for 40 years, and I switched over to Fuji about 6 years ago, the X system. And you take a shot like this where the sun is rising to the right, and you know, those are all the colors in the atmosphere. They're not enhanced. It's just simply pulling the color out. That's what was there. And you know, one thing you have to realize is that when you're shooting raw, your image, the image you're getting, and see, we're getting a little jaded by our phones we use, because our phones have all kinds of wizardry in them. They're doing multiple shots. They're sandwiching them together. They're giving you HDR images. You don't even realize that they are. And that's wonderful as a JPEG that you're going to post in social media or send to your family. But when you're shooting raw, it's, you know, sort of like when a film is made. When a film is made, everything is very gray before it goes to get colored and finished. It's the same with a musician. When they record in a recording studio, they record everything flat. And then in mastering, post-production, everything is enhanced. So it's the same thing. I have a style of my work which is enhanced for sure. It all depends. But I also try to stay realistic in a lot of ways. So if it's a red car, I might pump the red up a little bit in the car just to make it pop. But otherwise, everything else pretty much stays real. This is in Monterrey, Mexico. And this was a building. It's like a restaurant, and it was closed for the day. And I thought it was really cool the way they had their chairs out front blocking it. And so, you know, it's, again, the color is what makes something like this pop. And again, somebody who loves color is going to like that. This is on the Prado in Havana, separates Central Havana from Old Havana. Walked by this many, many times, never took a photo. I was walking down to the mountain con with my tripod to shoot some sunsets and or a sunset. And, you know, I set the tripod up knowing I had the neon sign here, waited for some old cars to go by. I think I shot about 10 or 12 old cars, and I couldn't believe it when I saw a green car go by. And again, you know, look, you can very easily go into Photoshop and take any color car and turn it green and match it. But that's not what I do, and that's not what I did here. Just took some patience, and I couldn't believe it when this car went by. And of course, multiple shots, and I got the car in a really good position. So it really kind of jumps out at you. This is in Tuscany, in Italy, and I mean, the grass is so green and the sky was so blue. Again, you have to ask yourself, is it the image, the composition, that really would evoke emotion in this, or is it the color? And I like to think it's more the color in this. This is a, pretty famous cypress tree grove that has been shot a million times. And I've shot it numerous times, including when it's not green and it's more of like a wheat color. Similar to the other image I showed you, I don't know whether this might have been in Istanbul. Again, scarves hanging. This was scarves, the one was fabrics. The scarves had these little like squares and stuff on them. So again, I streaked the camera to give look. So again, if this is going to evoke any emotion, it's going to be due to color. This is a place we stay out on our Guatemala trip. It's such a great little hotel. And again, you can't help but want to take this picture just because of the color. It's just fabulous. And it's always decorated this way. Those aren't guests' hats and stuff. That's the way it always looks. Of course, you could stick yours there, but it's all for show. It's part of the decorating. Of course, this is in Arizona, in the slot canyons, antelope, and is the light coming in, and it's this one here was definitely enhanced. You actually turn the playing around the color dial and stuff. I just created this so that it had really more intensity to it, as opposed to many of my other shots in here, which are more like sandstone color. And here I am with, she happens to happen to be a Cuban friend and model. She's in New York. We're taken to the Oculus at 2 o'clock in the morning when no one was there, and shot this red dress. We have a whole series we did with this red dress. And here's a same red dress, same model, but we're in Central Havana with an old car. So again, what pops out in these pictures is clearly the dress. Perspective. Perspective can bring a lot to evoking emotion in an image. The next image I'm going to show you is an image that I got in Dubai. There's a great story behind this image. I won't get too long-winded about it, but I had always wanted to get this image. I purposely booked a 5-hour layover on my way to India, and I booked it at a time when I would arrive and I would be there at twilight. I left the airport, jumping in an Uber. I had gotten permission from this place, which was 42 floors up. And unfortunately, I could only travel with a travel tripod. So when I got up there, not knowing, of course, there was a glass wall and my tripod wasn't high enough. So I had to hang the tripod on the other side of the glass wall. And this is a stitched 3-image shot. But yeah, that's how I ended up getting this and then getting back to the airport in time to get my flight. So, that's a little bit on travel photography. And, it's kind of, you can make stuff happen if you really want to make it happen. And here's a good example of it. But again, this perspective and the long exposure is what makes people go, wow, to this image. This is in Cuba. I was driving around for the day in this old car, this old Chevy and Bel Air. And I decided to start to do a series of images that I was shooting through the window. And it's a nice way to frame what it is you're looking at. It can get old after a while, but again, just trying to be creative and look for ways to get people to go, wow, I really like that shot. That's a cool perspective. Here I am at the Taj Mahal in India. And if you go far enough back, you'll see there's a whole row of arches. I had to get on my tippy toes because you're not allowed to bring a tripod into the Taj. I got on my tippy toes to get this shot so that it was within the frame of the archway. You know, this is actually a candy apple red Ford in Santiago de Cuba in eastern Cuba. And so it was very, very, very bright red car, very cool. Not something you typically see in Cuba. You know, it just kind of jumps out at you. I often will angle pictures of cars because I find it gives them energy. It gives the shot more energy sometimes. So, you know, this has gotten quite a few people to say wow to this image. And here I am in India. I really love walking along the trains. Sometimes when they pull into the stations, I go into the trains. I photograph people in, I photograph outside. This happens to be a particular window that's like an escape window. And I've got a whole series of shots through this. I was walking by, she was sitting there, and I just asked her to pull herself up close to that and allow me to take her picture. And she's obviously on her way to or just returned from a wedding or something. She's got a lot of henna on her hand. So again, this is not so much perspective as much, I mean, it is because you're looking through the train and then you're looking through a window, again, using the window as a frame. This is also perspective. You know, walking down in Trinidad, Cuba, there's this Oldsmobile on the street, a couple of guys hanging out, you know, looking at me and how do I do this shot? And so I did it in a way where I got down lower and, you know, got in closer with a wide lens to the car. I need a nice balance between the gentleman and the car. The car is definitely the hero of the shot, for sure. You know, it just, again, it's a really nice shot that has a nice feeling to it. Here I'm in Cuba, and I can't remember what this car is called.
Studebaker.
Studebaker, yeah, Studebaker. Too many cars I know about. The bullet nose Studebaker, and you know, I shot this car different ways, but I really liked leaning over it. And again, it looks like it was painted with a spray can, definitely painted with a spray can, and you know, there's nothing perfect about it at all. It's quite old, pitted chrome. But again, by shooting it up above and getting that perspective and the bright color coming in. So some of these evoke emotion for various reasons, whether it's the bright colors, the perspective, the subject matter. And again, if you're a car person, you might love it, or you're a color person.
One thing I notice is a lot of your pictures have a lot of strong contrast. In particular, color contrast, like that last one, you know, the red car against the bluish street, or the one you took in Dubai with the yellow road against the blue sky. Those really make the image pop, that color contrast.
Yeah, you know, you go up on the exposure, you go up a tiny bit, very tiny bit, just a couple of numbers on the contrast. What will often do the contrast will be more the dehaze. So we have to be careful with the dehaze, because everything from, you know, the dehaze can also add color and make the color saturated and dirty. So you have to be really careful with highlights and dehaze. It's really a balancing act between the whites, the shadow, the exposure, and then on the darker side, the contrast, the black and the dehaze. Yeah, this is just, you know, everybody gets ooh and ahs over pets. If you want to evoke emotion, take lots of pictures of babies and pets, and you'll get lots of emotion. The third thing I talk about is mood. And that's probably the most, I think, prevalent thing that evokes emotion. Not exactly easy to do, because what evokes, what is it that you're doing that you're able to get a mood? And again, like I said, if you pick a foggy morning and you go out and you shoot a swan on the still water with a reflection and that, of course you're going to have a mood from that, and you might end up with an amazing picture. First picture I started off, this was shot in Iceland, and these are not your typical Icelandic horses, but I loved how they were both white. I loved how you couldn't see the head of the second one. So it's actually kind of a really interesting composition. And when I took this and I overexposed it, it just really worked nicely from an image, from a standpoint of creating a mood. And by me making it a little bit more like a panorama, I think it also helped it as well. But it works, it even works as a square image.
Hey, Michael, we had a question come in on one of your previous photos of the cat. They were asking, what lens did you use on the cat? I noticed that too, where is it a real wide lens that you're just like real close to the cat?
Yeah, this was shot when I was shooting a Nikon, and it's definitely a wide lens. I can't remember what lens I was using. I will tell you that I shoot very wide. You'll see I shoot with two cameras. I always have a something in the, sometimes it's as wide as a 14 millimeter in 35 millimeter format. But usually it's in like a 20 millimeter, 24 millimeter. I tend to go in that range, 16 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other camera either has a prime standard lens on it or like a 24 to 70. The Fuji, it's a 24 to 85, which is really nice. 24 to 85, 2.8. But again, if you're shooting street photography, that becomes a pretty big lens to take in someone's face.
Yeah.
Not street photography from a distance, that doesn't matter. But I'm talking about more like, shooting documentary style photojournalism with people.
Right.
Yeah, but
that's an interesting perspective there with the cat. It's just like,
I really love environmental portraits. You can get up and shoot the cat. You can use a long lens from across the street and shoot the cat. But then where's the context? Show me the context, because that's what really makes something, you wouldn't know this is Iceland. So it's a nice picture for various other reasons. But I always say to people, try to get context. I've been on trips like to Santorini where people want to just shoot the sunset straight out into the sea. And I'm like, you could be anywhere in the world taking that sunset. All right, if there's a sailboat going by and it's breaking the sun, that's fine. But don't you want to get it in? Don't you want to have context that's a Santorini? This is a picture I shot in Havana. Obviously, this woman is waiting on the corner. I talked with her afterwards. She's actually waiting for her date. And this is the driver of the car was leaning against the car. You can't see him. And I just really liked the way it had this mystery that was going on. It created a mood for this, and it really worked well in black and white. And again, the angling of it, I was able to get everybody in the picture the way I wanted to get them in. This is one of the things you see sometimes, though, in a place like Havana. If you know to the left side, you'll see the newer car, the nose of the newer car. Otherwise, it could have been shot at any time in the past. This is in Calcutta. Went down by the river, and there was a fishing boat slowly going by with some fog. And this gentleman just started to wade out into the water to do religious, really just a bathing. He was bathing himself, but in a religious fashion, doing some prayers. And then he was making his way out. And I just really love the composition with him wading in, and the wake of his wading in the boat. And of course, again, this is a little bit panorama-ish, in keeping everything works so much better in black and white. This is in the back streets of Delhi, India. Looked like this bike had been abandoned a long time ago. And I just saw it and it was really dark. The only light falling on it was just from the sky. You know, I just felt in black and white. It had a real mood to it. Two women field workers in Sri Lanka picking tea. Just photographed them in the back. You'll see another shot of them later in color. But again, doing this in more of like a dark sepia really gives this a really nice mood. This was shot in Havana. She's a ballerina, you know, this creates there's a lot of people that comment about this shot and what is she thinking about. She's traveled all over the world as a ballerina. You don't get to travel outside of Cuba. When you're a ballerina, you get to go to Shanghai and Moscow and Paris and Barcelona, Mexico City, all over. And she is one of the elder ballerinas. In this shot, I think she's about 36, 38. And, you know, kind of portrays her looking out and wondering, you know, what it's like to be back on the road. And she knows eventually she's not going to be traveling anymore. And here I am on the Malecon. In the sunrise had just opened, risen to the right of me. You could see the buildings lit up in the background. And again, I love the shot. I love the frame. I like the mood it was creating, but I wanted a car to pass by. It happens to be, instead of being a vintage American car, in this instance here, I captured a Russian or Soviet. I think it's a Lada. Actually, it's not a Lada. It's another Soviet model like a Lada. Not as famous. And here's a car that, you know, is in desperate need of some TLC in Havana. It's not operating. It's going to be repaired and restored. But again, the colors and the mood and the lighting, everything, the way it's captured just creates a mood. You can like the picture or not like the picture, but you're definitely getting a mood out of it. This is in Montauk, out on the tip of Long Island, where I live. And, you know, just again, the sea and all of the different levels of shadow being cast by the shadows and the sun, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you've got it just works in black and white so much better. It's a real nice, you know, evoke emotion with a shot like this, with the use of the black and white and the mood that's been created. This is on a sand dune in India, just looking at the sun. Pretty hard to shoot, you know, into the sun like that, but you can do it. You can make it happen. And she's a nomadic woman who was walking, you know, had her hold up her scarf so that we could get this.
Do you speak Hindi or Spanish or other languages?
No, I traveled to too many countries. You know, one of the most, people ask me, why do you like to go to India? And I say, well, you know, because if you go to Cuba, it's one country. If you go to Croatia, it's one country. Go to Sweden, It's one country. India is like going to 40 countries in one country. You know that there are 22 official languages on the rupee, and there are 112 recognized languages by the government, and there's over 12,000 languages. I could take you to places on our Gujarat trip, our lost tribes of Gujarat. We can go from one village to another, 5 miles apart, and we need a different translator because it's a different language. So it's really fascinating. So no, I don't. I understand some things, but no, I don't speak it. This
So
is
do
again
you
natural.
normally have a translator then? Because you're telling stories about these people, and it's like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
somebody has to talk to them.
Well, it's amazing what you can do with body language. There's a lot of things you can do with body language, and a lot of things you can do with just knowing certain things. Like, okay, say in Cuba, I understand some Spanish, but like I will throw things out at elderly people to get them to laugh before I photograph them. And it's just jokes and things like that. I don't really, I don't understand necessarily what they're responding to me back with. You can use body language to get a lot of things done. Whether you should talk with your hands or whatever it might be, you point to things, and then you've got an interpreter who will come in and when you need the interpreter. Yeah. And we usually I get people's names. I write them down on my phone, all of that stuff to document. This is Patricia. Patricia is a ballerina also. She is actually a former prima ballerina. I'm sorry. Again, natural light just at a window. Really nice way. It's not a really long picture here. It's just everything's dark to the left of her. This is in India. At the top of the Monkey Palace, and just a pretty wild place. It's a religious place. Just a really interesting, really nice mood. This is in Morocco, just real nice light coming in and reflection, all that, creating this really nice feel to this image. Of course, the reflections make a difference. You got to be there when there's water. If there's no water, you're out of luck. So, I've been here probably 6 or 7 times, and only maybe twice I was able to get a shot. So in Cuba with mountains, there's nothing retouched about this picture. That was just the, it was hazy, and it's just the way the light broke out the clouds, rather the fog, and created this. I've had people say, "Oh, I love that picture on my wall," whether they live down in Florida and they have a real coastal look, blues and things like that. And of course, you could take this and you could saturate the blues or make it more gray. Different things you can do, but again, this is how you can use mood to evoke emotion. Just a really nice boat sitting on the side. These were fishermen in Goa, India. Yeah, and just real pretty, nice composition, really following the rule of thirds here. I don't always do that. I understand it. I don't always necessarily believe in it. This is in Portugal. Absolutely, maybe one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen. This is outside of Lisbon, near Sintra, on the beach. And what happens in Portugal, a lot of people don't necessarily realize this. They want to know why the sunsets are so amazing in Porto and Lisbon. Well, because the Sahara Desert in Africa, Morocco and Algeria, Tunisia is right across the Mediterranean, which it's not right across, it's pretty far. But the sands will go up into the atmosphere and get pulled across the Atlantic. And when they're pulled across the Atlantic, you'll get these sunsets, and it alters the colors in the sunset. It's really spectacular. Anyway, the real sunset is beautiful, but again, I decided to fool around and create some interesting long exposures where I move the camera. This is also, we were on a boat in Croatia, just kind of moving along, and this is the wake of the boat. But, I just went in and I just had a really soft picture, and it's just kind of dreamy. There are a lot of people that like this and say, oh, it's kind of really nice. I love the way it just kind of makes so smooth and easygoing and soft. So you'd be surprised. The water was darker than that. But here I went in and I processed it in such a way where I, made it different than what it was. And I think this is the last one in this series. But this is grass reeds. This is outside of Charleston, South Carolina, along the beach. And these were just reeds of grass, seagrass. Just again, by doing that, you end up with these really interesting, moody pictures. The next thing I like to talk about is authenticity. I mean, when you capture stuff that's really authentic, you can get people to really, you can get them excited about what it is you're shooting. So everything's different. You shoot a waterfall, you shoot a sunset, a sunrise, all that can again evoke emotion. So in authenticity, I'm in Guatemala here. I meet this gentleman. He's like 90 years old. He's got like no teeth, and he was just such a blast, so much fun. And, he was having a blast, laughing and smiling for me. And I love the shot I got of him. He's actually, his hands up against the window, the lights coming in, not the window, the door, and the lights coming in right on him. And I'm trying to just squeeze myself in the corner to get this shot. This is in Central Havana, and nobody has, the car's a little enhanced, but it's a red car. Trust me, it's a red car. There are no car repair shops. There are no new car dealerships. Cubans don't get new cars. The government has new cars. But this is what it is. And this is how you repair your car on the street. And it could sit here for a month if you're waiting for parts, which probably come from Mexico or China, because the embargo, you can't get parts. So they come through intermediaries, or they fashion their own parts. So, just two gents working on their car. It's kind of cool. And everything behind them is decayed. Yep. I was up at a hill station in the mountains in southern India at a tea plantation that had been built around the turn of the century, over 100 years ago. I don't know how they got this equipment up there. I think by elephants. This guy's just up there working a shift. It's just a pretty intense face. This is a place in India, in Mumbai, where they wash clothes. And when I say a place where they launder and wash clothes, it's actually a community. People live there, they sleep there. Some people come and go. During a work day, it might swell to 10 or 12,000 people working inside this place. This gentleman lives there, and he's taking his morning bath before he goes ahead and starts washing clothes for the rest of the day. And I caught him doing this. He was more than happy to get his picture taken. This is an interesting series I have called 60 Minutes in the Dough We Got, which highlights the 60 images I took in 60 minutes in black and white in the Dough We Got, which was pretty fascinating. This is called Waiting for the Barber. This is in Central Havana. These were three gentlemen waiting. It was a Sunday. The barber was closed, but they obviously made an appointment, or they're friends of the barber. He's not there yet. I happened to see this through a little crack, not a little crack. It was like there are bars on the window. There are shutters. The shutter was kind of open. I looked through the bar and took the picture. They were more than happy to get their picture taken. But it's a really great example of documenting just how poor everything is and the conditions they work under. There's a lot of stuff going on in this shot that you can see. And, again, really capturing authenticity. And again, a lot of people love this because it's the real Cuba. This is nothing, no sugarcoating here. Jumped in a taxi in Mumbai by the slum that Slumdog Millionaire is from, and this kid just slammed up against the window. This is shot with a 16 millimeter. You could see the lens in the reflection. 16 millimeter on my Fuji, so it's a 24 millimeter and 35 millimeter format. And it just works so well in black and white. And this kid was really just begging. I usually don't put pictures like this. We gave him some money, which also you have to be careful to do because you create a precedent, and it just gets, and you also don't know where the money's going. It's not necessarily going in his hand if he's worked for somebody, which is a lot of what happens there. It's really sad. This is just this is from the Adobe Got collection, and it's just he's on the phone. He's on this little phone he has in his hand, and he's watching TV, and there's rats running around my feet. It was pretty bad conditions, but this is documenting life inside Adobe Got, and these guys probably make no money working there, but it's their life, and their caste system is probably so low. I was in Morocco here. I think it was in Fez, and I came across these three kids who yelled at me not to take their photo. Don't take my photo. No photo. No photo. I said, no, it's okay. And there were these boxes laying around back near them off to the side. I grabbed a couple of boxes and I said, okay. And again, yeah, you'd say to me, how do you speak their language? They're Berber. So they're not, people think they're Arabic, but they're not. They're Berber. Anything along Northern Sahara is. But, I signaled to them what to do it. And then, of course, my guide said, I said, hey, put these up against your face. If you don't want me to take your photograph, cover your faces. And they laughed and laughed. They thought it was the greatest thing. So, it went from, no photo to having fun with them. This is in Guatemala. This girl was so cute. She was so much fun. She just wanted to spend time getting her picture taken. She couldn't have been happier. And she had this cat in her arms for a while. And then I just said to her, put the cat on your head. And she did. And you ended up with a even cuter picture, which again, evokes emotion in a lot of people.
Where in Guatemala?
This was taken at a small town on Lake Atalan.
Yeah, I know the place. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah, I love it there. I'm supposed to go there in November, fingers crossed. I'll be at Oaxaca, Day of the Dead at end of October, Halloween, and then go to Guatemala after that. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Those are both nice places.
Yeah. This is called the Bread Lady. It's in Trinidad, Cuba. I came across this really colorful bike with this wrapped up basket, homemade on the end, and this blue wall. I loved it. And I see this woman way in the distance. It's a homemade bakery. They're making bread. The government gives out bread, sells bread. But there are these people who have licenses to, or not, or it's black market. You have to be careful. So most of the times they've got some kind of license. I saw this woman in the back, but the shot was the shot. I mean, it didn't really do anything. And I waved her forward, and she finally came to the door out of curiosity. And I told her what I was doing, and I took her picture, and I love the fact that she was wearing purple. And that was great. And so, I called the Bread Lady. Here, back to those two women there. You saw them in more of like a really, fine art, dark sepia portrait shot. And then here they are in color, where, I feel like I'm capturing more of their authenticity in this shot than the other one. And again, this is just pure window light. They had finished working in the fields, and they walked into their house, and it just looked at every different window or doorway that we could find that the light worked really well. And this did, and then, people think that you're shooting this in a studio, but you're not. And the walls are gray, but But, with the right exposure and the right light, exposing to the light on the face, you're just automatically throwing the background into darkness.
What was that on their foreheads?
Yeah, they have these like jewels, and this is like a paint. And then they stick it's like a glue with like a stone. Yeah, it's like a sometimes when I go, they'll put stuff on my head as well. And it's just a welcoming thing. This is a guy just working on his house in Trinidad, Cuba. I love the colors, how it's just so decayed. Eventually, this is going to get painted. This is one of the things I talk about in Vanishing Cuba, is that this is not going to last forever. The character that's in this building. Everywhere else in the world, we paint this as fast as we can. We're in places like this, they can't afford it. They can't even afford the paint. And so, he's there fixing his door with his pot belly hanging out, and it's just kind of funny and fun. His wife did come out and yell at me afterwards for taking that, which rarely happens, but sometimes it does. The fifth one, there are 6 of them, by the way. The fifth one is beauty. Beauty is a lot of different things. This is Montauk Point. Again, out where I live. This is sunrise, a low tide. You got the lighthouse catching the beam of light. You got a couple of fishermen in the water. It's not a long exposure, obviously. And it's a multiple shot stitched together panorama. Dolomiti Mountains, northern Italy. Prettier than this. You've got the lush green of the summer month, actually early summer. The church down below. This used to be part of Austria before it became part of Italy after the war. And then of course you've got the mountains in the back, and the snow still there from the spring. This is in Sicily at twilight. The moon's up, that's the moon up there, obviously, and a bit of a longer exposure. But again, this could go into color category. But people will see this and go, wow, where is this? I want to go there. New York City, longer exposure. This image here is a bit painted. I had some fun with painting some of the buildings to give it more of an interesting look. The violets that are in there are real, though, in the sky. Yeah. This is back to the Oculus at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's completely empty.
What is the Oculus?
Oculus is the world's most expensive train station. I forget what it is, $1 billion or $2 billion or something was spent on this. This is where the World Trade Center is when they built the new. So it's where a whole bunch of trains come together, and from there you can go to many different parts of New York and Brooklyn and Queens. And it's very futuristic like this. It has all kinds of stores. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing to go to. Again, I don't know where these numbers come from that get spent on these buildings, but it's a work of art.
And that's why you can be in there at 2 in the morning.
Well, actually, what happened was this is when I shot the red dress, and we were looking to go to shoot the red dress somewhere else, but they had turned the lights off at one something in the morning. So we said, let's go to the Oculus, and they were just, usually there's a lot of security, but there were just some repair guys doing some stuff and cleaning some rugs and things like that. And nobody said anything, but I worked very quickly. I found that, you go into a place like this, you can't waste any time because they'll You know, if you look on the other side, you see a staircase and an elevator, and actually it was the same thing where I was. So that's where I was shooting from, was that level. This is Matera, Italy, maybe one of the oldest cities in the world, or one of the 3 oldest cities in the world. And it was actually condemned by the Italian government after World War II. It was abandoned and then cleaned up and then restored to UNESCO. It's really, really amazing place. And so I went to the other side of the valley, and as the sun was setting, yeah, this was the scene. It was pretty wild. Yeah. Now in this scene here, yeah, I opened up the city of Matera, because otherwise the sun setting behind you, there's no way you would have gotten that as much, you know, it was just too dark. But again, people look at this image and they're just kind of blown away by it, just because it's so dramatic.
Was the sky enhanced a lot on that one?
No, it really wasn't. As a matter of fact, I have video of this. I had video of it, and the video is just so insane. You know, I think it was a little enhanced, but you see the video and it's just insane. Again, definitely one of the top 10 sunsets I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. It really is.
This was 9/11 on the anniversary. I'm trying to think. 9/11 on a 9/11 anniversary, but it was, I think, around 2016 or 17 or 18. Yeah, the sun was setting over to the left. It's hard to get those beams you just got to get it just the right time, because the beams are not lit enough. So you got to really stick it out. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you use a polarizer for that by chance?
Yeah, ND filter. There was an ND.
Oh, an ND.
Yeah, there were ND filters on this. I can't remember all the details, to be honest with you, but definitely ND. Yeah. You know, beauty is also in photographing people. This is my friend Natalie in Cuba. She's part Chinese, part Spanish. You know, just she had the scarf around her neck. We're walking along the Malecon, and I just asked her to put her around to frame her face. So beauty comes in different ways. This is in Lucca in Italy. And I was walking by, and this dog is standing like guard at this place, this loom place. She actually, everything this woman makes is made, handmade on that loom in the back that you see. Most of the stuff is up in the showroom on the 2nd floor, but her beautiful, beautiful dog here was just guarding, and he didn't move. And you know, I just moved in and got a different perspective. People love this shot again because it's a pet, it's a dog. But it's kind of cool. It definitely enhances the store. Because it's also got a really nice story behind it. So the last one here is connection, which is a little different than authenticity or whatever. I mean, a lot of times an image that evokes emotion, you know, there's a connection between you and your subject. And I know I've had people, photographer friends of mine, who will shoot with me and they'll say, Michael, you have the gift, you have the gift. And I don't even speak the language, but it's a gift of getting people to connect with you. And I talk about this often. I say, a lot of times when I'm photographing in a foreign place, harder to do, like in a city like New York or anywhere in America for that matter, because people are always skeptical of what you're photographing. In many other countries, you don't have that issue. But, you know, I make myself part of the environment. I make myself a fixture. I let them feel comfortable with me. I often say it's sort of like going on a first date and breaking the ice, except that, you know, it lasts for a second or a minute, or, you know, a few seconds or a minute. And then it's over by the time you're done taking the picture. So This is an image I shot in, I was in Calcutta, and I was walking, no, actually, yes, I was in Calcutta. And I saw him off in the distance down an alleyway, and he just stayed with me. I mean, I walked and walked and walked that alleyway, and I was with two friends, and they were ahead of me. They walked by him, and I got in closer to him, and he just was focused on me. And I just kneeled down and took the shot. And, you know, he allowed me to take the shot. And what I love about this is the solitude. Just, you know, what's he doing? It was like 6:30 in the morning. And he's just kneeling down, not kneeling, squatting down. And the sunlight is hitting him from the side. It's just, you know, it's a pretty emotional shot. I was there, so obviously it's more emotional for me. And the composition is over to the left side. It's in the same area of Calcutta. It's a little girl that I met. She was living in a little box. I would say she was getting ready to go to school, but she had this wrap around her head. Now, you know, India is mostly Hindu, but it's also 12% Muslim. And a 12% Muslim was at one point the largest Muslim population country. Now Indonesia is by only a little bit more. She's living with her grandmother in this box. And I mean box, I'm talking about like 4 foot by 6 foot, wooden, made with like plywood. And she's there because her grandmother's working, and she's going to school, to go to a better school than the little farm town that she comes from. And I learned this all about her, but when I took this picture of her just into this box, again, you can't see it. It creates this natural portrait of her, and just a beautiful face. And, you know, we haven't been able to get in touch with her since COVID began. We know she's okay, but I would do this with certain people. I will want to know more about them. I'll try to help them. I'll try to help their families. I will pick out different groups and places I go throughout the year. And she's one of them. Really, really beautiful young lady. It's an older gentleman. You know, I spent time photographing him. I didn't like what I was getting from a distance, and I kind of walked over closer to him, and his cigarette was almost ready to burn out, and he was squatting down too, which is something they do a lot in India, that part of the world. And so I just squatted down in front of him, took the shot, kind of mimicking him. He thought it was funny and gave me a grin, and that's how I got the shot. These boys were playing up at the top of the monkey temple. They were bathing in this holy water. They were just playing and having fun, frolicking around. And then they kind of stopped, and they kind of were in this position. The guy on the left wasn't exactly in that position, but the rest of them were like this. And I just pointed the camera to them and said, you know, it signaled that I wanted to take their picture. And they just naturally grouped the way they are. And I shot the portrait of them, which again, a lot of people love this shot. It is pretty real. And again, there's no posing here. It's just the way they were. Yes, they're posing for me, but within a matter of, you know, a few seconds, they did it. It's a young girl in Sri Lanka. I was playing hide and seek with her with my camera. She didn't want to get her picture taken. She was teasing. We were kind of teasing each other. She had a real pretty dress on too, but I really love it in black and white, and I like the way it's framed in the picture. But you know, I finally got her, and the way I got the shot really is she's looking up at my eyes, and I'm holding the camera down a little lower, so she doesn't even realize I'm taking the picture because she's interacting with my eyes and my face, and the camera's at her level. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm not only trying to show you pictures that I know have evoked emotion in some people, but I'm also trying to tell you how I took the images, what maybe was behind the image. This is a shot from Havana called Taxi Driver. And, I stuck my head in his car. I told him I wanted to take his picture. I thought he was a beautiful man, and I loved the inside of his car. His shorts were cool. And like all taxi drivers, he had like everything in the car made sense. There was something for everything in there, and that's what happens with these taxi drivers it's their life is in that car. They spend so much time in their life in the car. Same with like long haulers, truck drivers, that's a whole nother world as well. It's a young boy I met on the streets of Santiago de Cuba. So I don't know, the kid's probably young teenager by now after I shot this. I love the grandmother in the background with her arm up, like what's going on here, keeping an eye, a tab on her grandson, who is just totally enamored by me. Another thing I will do sometimes, it didn't happen here, but it's happened to me in other places, where kids will want to play with my cameras. And, I have given my cameras to kids to play with. Sometimes they're tethered to me. Other times they're not. Some people say you're crazy, what did you do that? But you know what? They get such a kick out of it. And it's really kind of fun to look at the pictures they took afterwards. So I will often let kids fool around because they're just so enamored by things. And then you end up getting these really great shots afterwards because they're so connected to you. This is a gentleman in Sri Lanka, and he had no teeth, and he was kind of shy about showing his teeth, or lack of teeth. And he was walking off the beach. He had just finished his gig. I don't know if you know this, but one of the ways they fish there is they have a boat that drags the net really far out, and the line goes to the beach. And then on the beach, they spread the net out really far out at sea. And then on the beach, they pull the line in, like 20 guys pulling it. And if there's a haul of fish, it gets pretty heavy. And then they haul the fish up on the beach. So he had just finished his haul. He might get money, or he might get nothing, and he gets some fish, which he'll sell to the market. So anyway, when I want to take his picture, he wasn't really working. And then I kind of showed him how I wanted him. I said, just put your, and there he was, he did it. And I thought it was a great shot of him showing himself off. These are actually natives in Sri Lanka. There's not a lot of them left. There's only a few tribes left. You've got to go into the mountains inside Sri Lanka to find them with special guides. He's actually chewing something that makes like a blood color, which is on his lips. Really, really interesting people. I had to eat some food and do some stuff with rituals with them, but it was really fun and cool. I mean, there's not a lot of people like this left in the world. There's not a lot of places like this. And this guy here was in Guatemala, and I just love what he did with his teeth. So I asked him to show it off, and well, not that I would do that with my teeth, but he showed off his teeth, and again, grabbing the shot. So again, it's all about connecting with people. So that is the end of Evoking Emotion here. I'm going to just quickly take you through this, and then we'll take lots of questions if you have any. I just want to tell you about this book I have, Vanishing Cuba. It's being printed in about 6 weeks, and it's pretty amazing book. There's actually 3 versions of the book. There's a silver version, a deluxe version, and a reserve edition, which is limited. It's more like a collector's book on the other side. If anybody wants to know about this book, you're more than happy to, contact me or take down the information from here. You can see the reserve edition opens up like it's a box set, and the book lifts out of that. And this is some of the stuff that is in the book. It's all in English and Spanish, so it's in both languages. And actually, this is It was just in Fuji Love magazine 2 weeks ago. This was This Week in Lens magazine. They did a whole 14-page spread on the book, which is pretty cool. I've been doing interviews like every other day, so it's gonna be in a lot of magazines throughout the fall. And universities like Stanford and Miami University and UCLA, Metropolitan Museum of Art have bought the book, pre-ordered the book, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's it. I'd love to hear any questions.
Let me start by saying, wow, all of your photos are fantastic. Really, really very interesting.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they are.
I think that, again, one of the things that I saw in your photos was the contrast, the color contrast and stuff like that just makes the photos pop.
Yeah.
So great
I had
work.
I agree with Mike. I loved all the photos, and I did notice a lot of the contrast. But another thing that I really enjoyed in your photos too was the lighting. How you got the shadows in just the right places. I wanted to find out, is there a specific time of day that you shoot to get the lighting? Do you find yourself looking for lighting situations, or is that just a happy coincidence that the lighting was good for a lot of these shots that you're taking?
There's a lot of opportunities that come along, and you say, oh, I wish the lighting was better.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the lighting wasn't good, and you rarely can you salvage a picture like that. What I've had guests on photo trips say to me is, I've learned that you move people sometimes, and I will do that sometimes. The young girl that was just in her headpiece, she was outside of her door, and I just said to her, I didn't push her into her doorway, but I suggested she go into the doorway a little bit more, because I knew that I would cut down some of the light on her face just enough, and I would create that darkness behind her. And I've come across people who were just in the wrong light, yet on the other side of the street, when we talk about little narrow streets, maybe there's an alleyway, or there's just something that, and so that becomes like a art of finding those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's stairwell. But again, you can go in somewhere where there's no light, and then that's a problem.
I've been fortunate to be able to travel quite a bit too. I suspect a lot less than you, but I've been to many of the places you photographed and showed tonight, and you've done a marvelous job of catching those different places.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you ever run into problems with people, confronting you because you've taken their picture? Or it seems like most people, from what you've said, most people are okay with you taking the picture. I'm thinking of the one guy that was kind of squatting in India there, the black and white picture. I mean, he looked like he could be kind of threatening at some point.
Yeah, and I followed him for at least 3 minutes. I mean, I was walking down this alleyway taking other pictures. He was following me. So I made him comfortable with me. He that was not an issue. If he said, no, don't take my picture, I wouldn't take his picture.
Right.
If he said he didn't like it, if he asked to see the picture, a lot of times I show the picture. I don't always. It all depends. Sometimes I don't want to bother people. I'll let them be in their space. If I'm told they don't want the picture, I delete it. I don't use it. There's no reason. I take enough pictures.
Right.
Can I go into Central Park in New York and take pictures of kids like some pictures you saw here? No. I mean, they would call the police on me.
Right.
So unfortunately, that's a cultural thing that just happens.
Right.
In some countries, people are just, they actually push their kids in front of them because it's kind of an honor that someone, a professional photographer, might look like one, is taking their picture. It's a completely different thing. But like I said earlier, it is a matter of I often will, I remember being somewhere in Italy, no, it was Croatia actually. I know these kids hanging out with skateboards, and I walked up where they were, and I purposely took these pictures of nothing just because I wanted to be in their presence and taking pictures. And then after I took like 10 or 12 pictures of really nothing, I kind of turned the camera on them, and they were hanging out at that point, so comfortable with me. And it's a really great shot of them. So, they're kind of just like real cool kids, and but had I walked up to them and just took their picture or tried to take it from across the street, you would never have gotten the same connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now you lead photo tours then, this photo workshop adventures. You take people out on photo.
Yeah, I can stop the share. Yes, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. Go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Hello?
Yeah. You there? We're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Photo Workshop Adventures, I started 11 years ago, 12 years ago, and we now have 22 photographers. We do over 150 trips in over 50 countries. And some of them are landscape, some of them are, street photography or a combination of documentary and street. Some of them are unique festivals. It all depends. And so, like when people say to me, you went to Cuba 24 times. I'm like, yeah, I went to Cuba 24 times. You have to understand, I didn't go to Cuba 24 times and, spend my money going to Cuba. I made money going to Cuba.
Right.
Sometimes you break even, sometimes nobody's getting rich off of that, trust me. But you're also getting to photograph. And, I do those trips. We do those trips very much leading by example. So in other words, everybody's allowed to shoot what they want to shoot. You're shooting. It's real. Sometimes my guests shoot better pictures than I do, and it's just great. I'm so happy for them. And I'm saying, look at you, how come I didn't see that picture? How come I didn't see that scene? And we can't all be, that's why when somebody says, I don't know, there's nothing to photograph. I say, walk into your favorite bar and there's hundreds of pictures.
Right.
Depending on which direction you point the camera, what lens you have on, what perspective you take, there are hundreds of pictures, and there's something changing all the time. I tell people when they go to a car show, for example, I say, listen, don't walk by the cars and just take snapshots. All right, you're documenting the cars. You can do that, but get in close on the cars, shoot some detail shots, get some fine art shots going, or get some really interesting wide shots. You'd be surprised what you can get that really, you see things differently. That gets down to, we teach a thing called the art of seeing. And that has so much to do with being somewhere and seeing it differently than you would have seen different, another way, or the way other people see it.
Yeah.
What's the name of your photo travel company?
Photo Workshop Adventures. Photo Workshop Adventures.
Got it. Thanks.
And we can leave behind if you guys want. We can send that information, but I think you might have that information that you gave out already.
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah.
What lens do you use? You mentioned it before, but your pictures are so crystal. They're very sharp. What lens are you using?
I switched over. I'm not a Fuji X photographer. I don't. As somebody who runs trips, I don't want to be associated with a camera. There's no commission, or I don't want to, you can bring any camera you want. And at this point here, you're really splitting hairs when it comes to technology and quality, because they're all great. But the Fuji's always had a reputation for two things: the quality of their lenses and their film. If you go back to the days of shooting film, your Kodak had a look, your Agfa Ilford had a look, your Fuji always had a slightly more colorful look. It's because they had a different emulsion than Kodak did. And that was their whole shtick. When they developed the X series system from the ground up, body, lens, everything, and sensor, they wanted to mimic their film. So, and they do, because, but you know, honestly, you're splitting hairs now. But when the X system first came out, people would say to me, "Why are pictures so colorful?" I'll be like, "I don't know, maybe it's the Fuji." They're definitely more colorful than the Nikon. But now if you look at the mirrorless and the Nikon or the Sony or even the Canon, I mean, Canon made 3 attempts at a mirrorless, and they finally got it right. But yeah, they're all great. But yeah, they're Fuji lenses, and some of them are primes and some of them are zooms.
Mhm. Okay.
I used to shoot with Fuji film over Kodak, just because I always liked their colors better. I won't say they were truer, but they were, let's say, a little more robust.
Yeah.
And that's the way I remember the shot. You know, when you look at it, like you see that red car on a gray cobblestone street, and that red just pops out in your mind.
So you realize that your eyes these lenses and cameras don't compare at anything to your eyes. Human eye is amazing. And you have 2 eyes that are in 2 dimensions, but they're using, you know, your brain to create a 3-dimensional look. That's why things do look more 3-dimensional and have more contrast. That's why you have to go back into the image and give it more contrast if you want it to pop the way your eyes saw it.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This was really interesting.
Yeah, very good.
Fascinating.
Also, I just want to let everybody know too, Michael will be coming back and doing another presentation in October for us. Forgive me, off the top of my head, I don't remember what it was, but I'm definitely going to be looking forward to it.
So am I. Yeah, this was great.
Yeah.
I think it was very good. Yes.
And if you're in Cleveland and you're here on a Friday night, come and visit us at the club.
Hey,
Show you around here.
Excellent.
If we have meetings going.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
hopefully by then we will. But
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All
Great
right.
job. Very
Everyone,
good.
stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.